Hey there. Welcome to Toy Talk with Mike and Chad, episode 49.
I'm Mike.
I'm Chad. The part of Mike's collection we'll be talking about today are some DC Superpower figures.
Yeah. Did you forget what show you were on for a second?
I had a little delay, yeah. Like I said in the last episode, it's been a really long week. Professionally, I'm just doing a little job switch up temporarily, so
It's a busy time of year.
yeah, and it's getting close to Christmas. It's November 30th, so
Yeah.
everybody's crazy. Everybody's going crazy.
Mm-hmm. How's your Christmas shopping going?
Haven't even started. I'm a December baby, so
Right.
I don't typically like starting until after my birthday, which is December 17th. So I don't typically start until December 18th because in the hustle and bustle, everybody always gets wrapped up in Christmas, and my day isn't as important as the holidays, and
Yeah.
I'm just really sour about that, so whatever. But I'll buy like stocking stuff beforehand. I usually know what I'm getting people,
Yeah.
so it's just a matter of either buying it online or mapping out the store I'm going to and
So
getting it.
you're going to brave them all?
Yeah.
Now, when you go, he's become sort of famous now, but like at our Micmac Mall, which is one of the bigger malls in our fine city of like Halifax, we've got Woody, the talking Christmas tree, who grants your Christmas wishes. So instead of going to see Santa Claus, kids line up and they talk to Woody the tree. Are you going to go see Woody?
That abomination that we have now is not Woody.
Oh, no.
So a couple of years ago, he was gone for the longest
They
time.
retired
They
Woody.
retired Woody for the longest time.
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason, they brought Woody back, but gave him like a face full of makeup, and it was just, he looks pervy. And he made it to, was it Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel?
I think Fallon.
Yeah, he made it to Fallon.
The Christmas tree display has returned to a mall in Canada. Some people think it's cute, while others think it's a little creepy. Here, check it out. Whoa. Well, now we know what the Christmas episode of Squid Game will look like.
And they were talking about Woody the Christmas tree, the talking Christmas tree.
Yeah.
I got fond memories of Woody. My dad would take me every Christmas to the mall. We'd go almost every day because I'd want to go see Woody, and we'd go just watch Woody. And it was a big thing to watch Woody wake up for the first time. Like, they'd have a party, they'd have like hot chocolate and everything. And
Well, I was at the mall just the other day, and it's funny because it was like late, so it was after Woody's hours.
yeah,
And so he's got like a kind of a face kind of like a ventriloquist.
yeah,
So he's got this jaw that moves, and
Nutcracker,
and his eyes like blink and stuff. So when he's not on duty, because spoiler alert for any kids that might be watching this, there's like a guy and the tree's huge. Like the tree's like 30 feet tall or so. I don't know. It's like
it's a really huge.
it's
Woody.
a huge tree. And so it's hollowed out, and there's a guy in there with a microphone or something, and he talks. So yeah, when that guy's on break, the tree sleeps. So I was there just the other day, and you could walk by him because he runs alongside the escalator, and the tree's just there snoring away. They've got like snoring recorded on there. So yeah, you used to go see him wake up and he like yawns and stuff.
It was my thing. Like, me and my dad. This was like 1987. So no, even before that, 1985, 86. What? How do you think that guy likes his job?
I think it's got to be fun. Just like the guys that play the mall Santas, they obviously like doing it.
Like, I feel like when he's on his break, he'd be like Billy Bob Thornton in Bad Santa. We're like, give me a fucking break. I'm trying to eat my lunch. But yeah, anyways, this huge Woody.
I'll put a picture of him up here so everybody can see what Woody looks like. But
he's funny. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah. Anyway, we got a little sidetrack there.
Yeah. But
so yeah, I've got some new figures, and they're not opened yet, which has been tough for me because I've got them a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to show you them in package. I'm going to open them up and I'm going to shoot some close-up footage. We can review them in a little bit more detail. But for now, while I've got Chad here, I just wanted to quickly get your first thoughts on them because you're the resident DC expert on the show. So it's a good mix of figures here. So let's start with, he's right on top. This is one of the better ones of this set here. So these figures, they're made by McFarlane Toys. They come in the old style packaging that looks like the superpower figures from the 80s that were made by Kenner. And this here is the Michael Keaton Batman, essentially, the Tim Burton Batman. Now, Tim Burton's Batman never appeared in the vintage Superpowers line because that line was in the early 80s and that movie didn't come out until 1989. So it was after its time. So it almost looks a little weird on such a bright card because it's such a dark figure. But what's interesting about this figure is I am nostalgic for it because I didn't own any toys from this movie, but my younger brother Brian did. And those figures, you remember they came on like a gold blister card and everything. I almost wish they had replicated the gold card for this one figure. But this looks a lot like how I remember that Batman looking that Brian had. And I wish I still had it so I could do a side-by-side. I don't know how different they were. But
so, I like this guy. Mm-hmm. I can see how they're trying to get the Michael Keaton resemblance. Like, it does look good.
Yep.
But it's almost... It looks like an animated series.
Well, Batman. Yeah, it's not going to be film accurate.
I know.
But I would say, again...
It's a great figure. I like this guy a lot.
I would say they're trying to replicate the toy that came out in 1990, which I don't have it in hand, but from my memory, I would say this is almost a perfect replica.
Yep.
But again, I don't know if those figures were the same sizes because it might.
I had them.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I think they might have been about this size because they were bigger than the 4. They were bigger than the 4-inch ones, but they weren't quite 6-inch figures.
Well, what's funny is seeing it here on a Superpowers card and looking at it and thinking like this looks just like the one Brian had. But I had Superpowers figures when I was a kid. And when Brian got the Batman on the gold card, it never once crossed my mind that this figure looked like just a continuation of the Superpowers line. And maybe that was always the intent back then. Like, this figure can just be added to your Superpowers collection. But I never thought of it that way. There was always a separation between those two lines. And seeing it here like that, I'm realizing, like, oh, could that old 1990 Batman figure just been displayed with my old Superpowers seamlessly? But I don't know. Maybe they adjusted the size here or something. But
like, I like that you're enjoying this line. For me, it's almost like what they're doing with those Star Wars retro figures. Like, they're putting characters in them that weren't in that original line just to make money.
Yeah, we talked about these in our last episode. They're still sitting here. But like here is like the Mandalorian, which is a new character, but they've done him in that retro style, so he matches up with the old, shitty 1980s Star Wars figures. And yeah, that's kind of what they're doing here.
But regardless, I really like this Batman. I like any Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Except that stupid 112 screw-up one that they gave me. Anyways.
And as far as I know, like this looks like pretty much a new sculpt. Yeah, because I already have a Batman in his standard gray and blue.
Gray and blue, yeah.
And they could have just painted this guy black. Because when you look at the artwork on the packaging, all they've done is take the classic blue and gray and they've colored them all black. Like, that does not match the toy.
No.
So I'm glad that they didn't just do that with the toy. They actually put some effort in and they gave him his proper uniform. And yeah, he's pretty cool. I like it.
You call it a uniform?
No, I don't know why I said
costume. Uniform?
I think costume, yeah. I'm sure uniform has a definition that should be associated with some sort of job or something. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, this next
outfit.
Yeah, outfit. This next one, I don't care for so much. He's fine, but this is Reverse Flash or Professor Zoom, or I don't really know the difference with those names. It's the same guy. Excuse me. So the thing is, like, they put out the Flash in Wave 1, so I already had the Flash, and now we just get him again in yellow, which that's all Reverse Flash really is, so I wouldn't expect them to put a bunch of...
Look at the fucking teeth on him.
Well, that's the one thing they changed, actually.
Yeah.
So I have the Flash here, and I did a little, like, side-by-side. I'm like, did they just paint this guy yellow? Which, again, I think would have been acceptable.
Yeah.
But they did give him...
He's got an open mouth.
They gave him a new face, so he's got kind of a scowl on him. So he does look a little angrier. Yeah, it's a weird scowl. It's kind of an underbite or something, but...
I like it, though.
It's fine.
Yeah.
But you can definitely tell that McFarlane is trying to maybe cut some corners with this line in that...
Todd? Really?
Well, like, in the same way that with his multiverse line, he just says Batman over and over and over again. Like, he's gone back to the well pretty early on. Like, almost there's only about 15 characters in this whole wave, and every single one of them has been done, like, twice already. So, not only did I get Reverse Flash, but they had another version of Flash, so Flash version 2, and it was this same figure, again with maybe some slight sculpting changes, but basically it was just in a darker, more of a crimson red.
Crimson.
Yeah, Scarlet. He's the Scarlet Speedster, right? So that makes sense. And I could justify it because it's like, well, this guy's Barry Allen and that one is Wally West. I don't know if the packaging actually specifies that, but in the end, I passed on it. I was like, you know what? These figures are just too similar for a different shade of red. I couldn't justify it, but I might cave and buy it eventually. Anyway, so yeah, not bad. This next one, I'm kind of disappointed about.
Because don't tell me it's Robin.
It's Robin. Because Robin is a favorite... He's not so much a favorite character of mine now, but when I was a kid, like me and Doug loved Batman and Robin, and when we run around the yard and play role play, like Doug was Batman and I was Robin. We had the 12-inch dolls of them when we were kids. Doug had Batman. I had Robin. So I was a fan of the original Dick Grayson. Robin. And now this figure here is actually not Dick Grayson. This is supposed to be, what's his face? Tim Drake. Yeah. The third Robin. And honestly, Tim Drake was probably my favorite Robin because when I loved the Dick Grayson Robin when I was a little kid, that's from like the old 60s TV show and the cartoons. I hadn't really started reading comic books yet. By the time I started reading comic books in the like mid 80s, he had already retired and became Nightwing. And I never liked Nightwing. I thought the costume was stupid. Yeah. Then there was Jason Todd, who was the second Robin, and he was getting killed off right around the time I was getting into comic books. And then the third Robin came in. And I was excited about Tim Drake because he was like a brand new Robin. He had pants on instead of little goofy shorts. So I could get behind that. And it was my chance to kind of get on board with a Robin right out of the gate. So I collected all the Tim Drake Robin comic books when they first came out, and I really liked that character. But this toy, it looks derpy.
Super derpy.
Yeah. And, you know, like, it's a new sculpt. Like, this is not a repaint of a Wave 1 figure, although they've released this figure twice. If you look on the back of the package, there's one with, like, slightly brighter colors.
Yeah. It's like I don't want to say neon.
Yeah, I don't know what the point is. Like, one's just a little bit brighter. That's all.
Also, again, with the packaging, it doesn't look the same.
Yeah, like the packaging, it looks like Dick Grayson. Because he's got the kind of hair combed over to the side. But this one here, he's got kind of his hair spiky to look a little bit more like Tim Drake, a little more contemporary. But he looks weird. Yeah,
I'm not a fan of this guy.
Me neither. But I had to get a Robin. Yeah. He looks short and stout or something. Yeah. Like, he looks too wide. His face looks too fat. It looks like his mask is so low, like you should be able to see eyebrows or something.
Yeah.
There's just... I don't know. He looks like he has Down syndrome. I'll be like... And that's not a knock on anybody with Down syndrome, but it's just... That's what he looks like.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, so it's not a great figure. Here's another one I'm not so excited about. So it's funny with these toys. Like, I've got these toys, but a lot of them I'm kind of like meh about. But They are only $15 Canadian.
Can't go wrong.
Like, nothing's $15 Canadian. Like, sometimes I buy toys online and they're $15 American. I think, well, that's a steal, but really it ends up being they're, $20, $21 when you convert it. But to go into the store and get an action figure for $15, that's kind of basically unheard of. So it's kind of hard to pass on a figure. So this guy here, I was really close to passing on. So this is Thomas Wayne. So this is from the alternate reality where Batman's dad became Batman instead of...
Because Bruce Wayne dies in Crime Alley, not...
Yeah. And I've never read any of those comic books, so I have...
Years ago. I
have no attachment to the Thomas Wayne version of Batman. I think his costume just is less cool than the regular Batman. And I don't think it looks very good in this format.
No, me either.
Like the way
the face, he looks too bulky for.
Yeah, that's the thing with these superpowers figures is they are kind of top heavy, like it's cartoonishly,
like his chest is puffed out.
But I don't like the way those straps that he keeps his guns in around his legs. They look weird on this figure.
Yeah, I mean it's good for $15. Probably I would have, if I collected this line, I probably would have passed on him.
I was really close to passing on him. But I was like, yeah, $15. And I don't have any version of this character in my collection at all. Like, I don't have a 6-inch version of Thomas Wayne. And I don't know how deep they're going to go on this Superpowers collection. Like, am I eventually going to have 100 figures from this line? Or even 50? I don't know. And I have a shelf dedicated to them now over here. One of the reasons I got them is because I just want to populate my shelf.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
I passed on him in the multiverse line.
I actually like his head sculpt.
Really?
I think the head sculpt might be the best thing about this. I think from the neck down, the proportions aren't doing him any favors. The red straps are too prominent on this figure. Yeah. But I like
Looks like he's wearing... Fuck, what are those called? You know when... This is going to sound pervy. They attach to, like, girls' underwear, you know those things? Like, in movies that hookers would wear or whatever.
Yes. Now, why am I'm blanking on it right now, too. But yeah, or it almost looks like he's got suspenders that are just hanging down on him. But anyway, it is what it is.
I shouldn't say hookers. Regular women also wore them.
Yes.
Wear them.
Now, this one here is kind of interesting. So this is Superman in his less popular New 52 look. So Superman was included in Wave 1. So I already have Superman. I'm going to take a look at this guy. And I, initially when I bought these figures, I was going to keep them carded because I really like the way they look in display. So when I did my best action figures of 2022, this guy didn't make the cut because I still had him in his card. And I was like, it wasn't really fair to judge him while he was still carded. But I said back then, I was like, if I had opened this guy, I think he could have made my best of list. Just because the novelty of having Superpowers toys back was so new to me. And I loved the simple aesthetic of this Superman. I just loved the way he looked. I still do. And I thought maybe he'll make my list this year because I am going to open this guy up. But I don't think he will because the novelty has worn off a little bit by now. But...
unpopular opinion, I am a fan of the New 52 Superman costume.
Well, like, it does seem weird to argue that, like, no, having your red underwear outside your pants is the way to go. Yeah. Like, it sounds...
Yeah, I agree with that. Like
that's his classic look.
Traditionally.
So you want that, but at the same time, it is silly when you think about it. So this guy here, that's the major change, is that so he's got...
all blue.
He's got all blue? Yeah. And I assumed that these were going to be the exact same figure, just repainted. But he's got a different belt. Yeah. I think otherwise he's pretty much the same. But they gave him a different torso piece to give him that new belt. And I was surprised. Like, I love this figure when I got him. And one of the things I love about him is the weird eyes. He's just got two, like, little blue dots. Yeah. Very unnatural looking. And I was like... But then this guy's got much better eyes.
Better looking eyes.
And as much as I love this one for its kind of style, I'm like, ooh, I think I like the new guy's eyes better. It's like comparatively, like the old one looks.
They look like eyeballs.
They look like eyeballs,
not just blue dots.
That yeah, I find myself thinking that the new version is probably better than the Wave 1 version. I like them both, but the artwork doesn't look good.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Again, it doesn't match.
Yeah, it just doesn't, like, I think the Wave 1 figure had him, like, flying, and it was a more dynamic pose, where he's just standing statically. I think that's where the all blue uniform doesn't look good. You want those red shorts to break it up when he's standing statically like that, but in an action pose, it probably wouldn't be as noticeable. Alright, so that's Superman. And the last figures I got here, I'm kind of impressed with, because these figures, he has been playing it safe with the characters. If you look at the back of the package, he's done Superman twice, Batman 4 times, Flash twice, WonderWoman twice, Robin twice, Nightwing twice. That was actually another figure I passed on. They had this version of Nightwing with the gold, and I have the one with the black and the blue. And again, like, I never really liked Nightwing all that much. The black and the blue is sufficient for me. I didn't need the gold and blue one, so I didn't bother buying him. But anyway, so all these mainstream characters, the play it safe characters. But then he put out this 3-pack of weirdos. Now, they're not as obscure as they used to be, obviously. But this is for one, just the fact that it's a 3-pack is pretty cool. Like,
Judo Master, that's an interesting choice.
Well, yeah, so you get Peacemaker,
yeah,
Vigilante, and Judo Master. And if you had asked me maybe, like, 3 years ago if I knew who any of these characters were, I would probably be able to name Peacemaker, but barely. And I didn't know who Vigilante was, and I didn't know who Judo Master was. Now, did you watch the Peacemaker show?
No.
It was good, you should. But, like, so Peacemaker appeared in the DCU, played by John Cena. In the Suicide Squad. Was it the Suicide Squad or just Suicide Squad? I can't remember which came first.
Suicide Squad.
The second Suicide Squad movie, which is far superior.
Absolutely.
Anyway, that spun off into a Peacemaker TV show. And in the TV show, his sidekick was Vigilante, and he was in, like, basically every episode. But he was kind of a goofball who was like a superhero wannabe. I don't know what he's like in the comic books. He looks like he's supposed to be kind of a badass. Yeah. But he was comic relief.
He always reminded me of Snake Eyes.
Yeah, he's got kind of a Snake Eyes vibe. And then Judo Master was also featured. He was a villain in the Peacemaker show, except he's wearing all green and black in the show, and I didn't know what he was supposed to look like, and apparently he was supposed to look like this goofball. So yeah, I wouldn't have even known who these guys were, except for that show. And it's pretty cool that we're getting these obscure, like, I would say, D-list.
It's like, they're nice. I think Peacemaker looks really dumpy, though.
The Peacemaker's the worst of the bunch because the helmet looks bad.
I'm not a fan of that helmet in general. Like, it looks stupid.
It's a dumb helmet.
Why do I have popcorn in my hoodie? Okay. A piece of popcorn in my hoodie. Yeah, I don't know. I was never a fan of the helmet.
With the Peacemaker helmet, too, what bothers me, not only does it look dumb, but I get it for this style of figure, but you can see through his eye holes, and it looks like just flesh-colored, like they didn't paint them white. Didn't paint. Like, if they painted them white, it would have been a lot more easy for me to accept it, but it's like he doesn't have a face under that helmet, which is weird.
Now, yeah, it's a really weird 3-pack, but it's kind of cool. I never got too much into the comics, these guys, so I really have an attachment to them, but it's nice to see that they're kind of trying to shine light on some of their D-Squad heroes.
Well, see, that's, I think, what made the original Superpowers toys so beloved is that, because everybody, kids knew Batman, Superman, Flash from, like, the Super Friends TV show and stuff, but then they would stick in characters like the New Gods and characters like Red Tornado. Yeah. And kids just bought them up because they were part of this collection. But, like, it was a way to introduce kids to the characters that weren't on the TV show and that, like, were really D-list characters in DC. And so I think that's why people loved it so much, is because he had all these weird characters. And so now that McFarlane's doing them, he's doing the Supermans and the Batmans. But when he does characters like the Batman Who Laughs or Thomas Wayne Batman, like, sure, he's adding characters that didn't exist back in the 80s, but those aren't the characters I really want to see. They're not D-list characters. They're just kind of like trendy, current characters. This is the kind of stuff I want to see him do. Like, if he could do more old school characters that didn't make the original line, but this is what they would have looked like had they been included in there. Like, so yeah, give me more like the Red Tornadoes. Give me the Metal Men. Give me some weird stuff like that.
So he's doing that in his multiverse line too. So he's been kind of branching out. Now I haven't collected too many of those in the last year. Kind of McFarlane out, but he's re-releasing, or I should say, he's releasing figures based on the Batman animated series figures. I didn't pre-order those just because I already have them out of box. Some of them are still in the box because I just haven't opened them yet and don't have the space.
Yeah.
They're worth a fortune.
And those were from what, Mattel or somebody who made those?
I can't remember. They were based off the 90s ones. Or they are the 90s ones, but they were released in the early 2000s. So there's some of those. Anyways, that being said, he's doing a lot of Build-A-Figures now, copying Marvel Legends and whatever. So in this set, the Build-A-Figure is the Condiment King.
I haven't seen that one yet.
His weapons are guns hooked up to a backpack.
Mustard relish?
Mustard and ketchup.
Okay.
He looks really stupid. It's a stupid concept for a superhero, but hey, man. Super villain.
And again, I'd rather that than another Batman.
Yeah.
Like, in a way, he's doing me a favor because, like, I was reluctant to get in on McFarlane's multiverse line, even though I like DC characters, but the scale was off.
Yeah.
But over time, I have acquired quite a few of them. I probably have close to 20 of McFarlane's multiverse figures. And the more I get, the more I'm like, it's easier to buy more and, like, grow my collection. But unlike you, who you like to collect Batman, so you bought every one that came out, I want more variety. So I was waiting for him to do some characters that I would really like to see. Like, give me Power Girl, give me a Batwoman. But, like, he just hasn't gone deep into the catalog. So I like when I see him doing stuff like Condiment King. It means he's starting to take a little bit more risks. He's been giving some more, like, he's got a new Wonder Woman that's in a classic outfit. Because before he was always doing Wonder Woman in her, like,
gladiator style
or like metal version and stuff. I like to see him doing these classic versions. And yeah, if he keeps making really nice classic versions, he could win me back over, and I might start buying some more of them again. But yeah, we'll see. Okay, so yeah, I will shoot probably some close-ups of these so we can take a closer look. I'll do that after you leave. So it's a couple of days later. I'm here by myself. I've got all of my superpower figures opened up, so I just want to quickly show you them so you can kind of see some of those details that me and Chad had talked about earlier before we wrap everything up here. So first off, here is the 1989 Batman outside of the packaging. So he is pretty cool. He looks, a lot like the Tim Burton Batman from '89. The cape is this kind of really... It's a soft goods. It's really kind of thin feeling, which is okay. It feels like the capes of the vintage Superpowers figures. And it feels a little different from the other, like the previous capes we've got in this line from McFarlane. And I'll bring up the other Batman here to do a little comparison here in a bit. But yeah, it does look pretty good. Although, as I was editing the earlier part of this video, I went online and I found a picture of that vintage Batman figure from 1989 or 1990 that my little brother had, and it does look similar to this, but it's definitely not as similar as I was thinking in my head. One of the main attributes that I'd forgot about that vintage figure is that he had a belt that was on a rope, so you could pull the kind of like the bat thing out from his belt, and this guy obviously doesn't have that feature. But the design is pretty similar, and it looks like size-wise they were probably pretty similar. But yeah, when I was describing this figure before, saying it looks almost identical to the one that he had when we were kids, I forgot about that belt thing for sure. Anyway, this is a cool figure. I like the head sculpt. I like the entire sculpt, actually. We mentioned how these guys sometimes have kind of cartoony proportions. They almost seem a little top-heavy. I don't really think that with this guy. I think he looks really good. And one cool thing to note that happened actually since we shot the earlier bit of this video is another wave of McFarlane Superpower figures have went up for pre-order. And one of the figures that they're doing is a repaint of this Batman in all gold, which is kind of cool because that was another figure from that vintage Kenner line that my little brother had. He had this one, he had a gold one, and he had a yellow one. He might have had more, but those are the three that I remember. So it's kind of cool that McFarlane's doing a gold one. It's kind of an homage to that old school Kenner figure. I'm looking forward to getting that one eventually. So yeah, looks good. Now maybe we'll just keep him on hand while we talk about the other Batman of this line. So here is the Thomas Wayne version of Batman. So, this is what I was saying about his head sculpt. I like this head sculpt. Chad didn't like it as much, but I think it looks pretty good. I think it looks, I don't know, more detailed somehow than like this one. Like this head looks like it belongs on a simple little retro style figure like this. Like it looks appropriate. But this head here looks sculpted well enough that I could see this, going on one of McFarlane's like 7-inch DC Multiverse figures. It just has that little extra bit of, I don't know, depth or personality in it. At least that's the way I see it. But then, yeah, this is where the figure kind of goes wrong in the body. Like, this is one of those ones where I think the proportions seem a little off. Like, his legs almost seem small compared to his upper half. And me and Chad were struggling to find the word for garter belt. But this is what, it does kind of look like he's wearing a sexy little garter here. And I don't really love it. I know it's true to the design in the comic books, but it just didn't look as weird in the comic books. So, yeah, he's also got a very flimsy, it's the same kind of material as this Batman. Very loose. It's got some stretch to it. But yeah, and it sits well. Like, if you're not familiar with these capes, it's just like a little, they got a bendy wire in the neck there that you could probably stretch all out of shape. But it kind of comes so it just fits on there and it kind of just holds in place. And holds in place quite well. It's actually a pretty good design. And they've carried that right over from the vintage toy line of the 80s. So yeah, not too bad. Now we did talk a little bit about the card art of these figures earlier, but I wanted to kind of show you in close up. So with the movie Batman, this is the artwork. And like, it's not bad artwork. It looks like vintage, comic book art. But where it feels a little bit lazy is that clearly they took the classic Batman design where he would normally be, with a blue cowl and a blue cape, and they just colored it all black so that it would kind of match the all black look. But like that Tim Burton Batman did not have this clear separation of the cape from the rest of the bodysuit and everything like that. This is clearly not that same costume. They just colored the different costume this way. And so I think I pointed that out earlier as being kind of lazy. But I don't think we talked about the Thomas Wayne Batman card art. I didn't really notice it at the time, but it is really lazy. So Thomas Wayne has this distinct bat symbol with the red circle and everything like that. And he has those very distinctive, red garter belt on. This is the artwork. So they colored his eyes red. But clearly that artwork is not the Thomas Wayne Batman. That is just some classic like 80s Batman art that they just recolored. You can kind of see they hinted at a red belt there, so I guess that's supposed to be Thomas Wayne, but he definitely doesn't have all of his other gear there. He doesn't have the proper symbol. So that's really lazy. I don't know why they would do that, because clearly they have access to artwork of the Thomas Wayne Batman. So yeah, I don't know, because when these figures first came out, like last year, I was considering keeping them all carded. I was going to pin them on my wall because I was just so impressed with how they looked. But when I see card art like this, I'm like, they couldn't even put the effort in to make the picture match the figure and everything. That just seems particularly lazy. So if I had been keeping these on the card, this is the kind of thing that would deter me from doing that going forward. Anyway, before we move on to the next couple of characters, I just want to bring out my Wave 1 Batman. So he does have a different head sculpt from both of these guys. I'm not sure. He probably has a different... I think he's different throughout the whole sculpt, actually. Now this cape here, it's a different material. There doesn't really have a stretchiness to it. It's a lot more rigid. I don't know really how to describe it. I'm not a material expert, but this feels more like kind of like if you had a ribbon you were wrapping around a Christmas present or something, like that type of material. It's a little sturdier, which I don't know if that's better or worse, to be honest with you. Like, it kind of holds its shape perhaps a little bit more than these guys do, but you know, where you can see in the packaging it had a little like pin through it to hold it in place, and that pinhole is still very obvious, which I don't think you would get that with this kind of softer, more flowy material. So anyway, so that's how these three Batmans stack up next to one another. There is still one other Batman that I don't have, which I believe is just this one recolored in kind of more classic colors. And by more classic colors, I mean like the vintage Superpowers Batman. So this is the Kenner figure from the 80s. His cape is much more like these guys' capes. So yeah, there you go. There's all my Batmans. Pretty cool. Now let's take a look at Reverse Flash. The figure's nice. Before we look at him with more detail, I do just want to take a look at the card art again. The card art is nice. Like, that's got that kind of classic 80s look to it. But I would say that this is a picture of Flash that they just recolored, because I think it's just something in that face sculpt. He looks too pleasant. So again, I don't know why they wouldn't actually find a picture of Reverse Flash and put him on the card. It just seems lazy. But this one doesn't bother me as much because I like the aesthetic. It's a good drawing, at least. Anyway, so Reverse Flash. So there's that kind of scowl that Chad was making fun of earlier. Doesn't really bother me. Then he's got the like kind of chin strap that comes around. So yeah, I think it's a pretty decent figure. Now if we compare him to the Flash that we got in Wave 1. So they look to be the same body, you know, the same belt, everything there. But yeah, the head sculpts, I was pleasantly surprised when the head sculpts were different, because they could have very easily just painted this guy yellow and called it a day, but they did give us a new head sculpt there, so that's cool. And then they did, as I mentioned earlier, they gave us another Flash in a darker red. I couldn't tell because I didn't have the two Flashes there for comparison, but I think that other Flash is just this same figure painted a darker red color. I don't know if they changed anything in the sculpting. Not that they necessarily needed to, but it would definitely make me feel more justified in spending the money if they had given him a new head sculpt or a new belt or something. Anyway, my only other Flash to bring out here is my vintage 80s Flash from Kenner. So you can see how he sizes up with these guys. I talked about this in my very first review of these figures. I don't know why McFarlane seems to want to go against the grain in that he has to make these figures just slightly bigger than the vintage figures. Like, I like them, the scale looks good, but I imagine there's a lot of collectors that would want to match these new superpowers with their old ones, display them together, and they're just slightly off. You know, like, can these guys belong in the same world? I don't know. I don't know why he wouldn't just shrink these down, you know, a couple of centimeters. And anyway, that's neither here nor there when it comes to Reverse Flash. He's a pretty cool figure. I like him. So next up we'll talk about Superman. I think he looks pretty good, as I mentioned earlier. Although I will just again give you a closer look at the card art. So there he is. The outfits match up, but I just don't think it looks very good. When you see him in the comic books with that all blue, it just feels too much blue. I think the red shorts help to break it up, but I don't think it looks as bad in the figure. Maybe because the figure's not as tall, so it doesn't feel like there's quite as much blue. But anyway, I really like this figure. And I will also mention the new wave of superpowers that went up for pre-order. There is yet another Superman in that wave as well. This one I'm not familiar with. There have been lots of Supermen from the future or from the multiverse over the years, like the Kingdom Come Superman, or, you know, I don't know, things like that. But this Superman, I don't think I'm familiar with him. I don't know if it's a newer creation. He's got kind of a white outfit on. But I will buy it when I find it because I think it looks pretty cool. So, but it looks to be largely a repaint of this sculpt. But I'll have to see it close up to be sure. And I might as well mention, I didn't talk about this with Flash, but there's a gold Flash coming in that next wave of figures. I don't know if that's based on anything, but it looks good, so I'll probably pick that up too. I'm happy to see that there's a Sinestro and a Hal Jordan. Those guys both look good. But anyway, back to Superman. So, a nice face sculpt. I really like the Superman figure, if I haven't said that enough already. This is the figure, this is the first one of the superpower figures that I saw, well, the Wave 1 version, and I just fell in love with it, and it got me excited about this line. And yeah, I think this one here might actually be an improvement. So to kind of make that point, let me grab my Wave 1 Superman. So here he is. I really like this guy. But you can see in those eyes, he just got two big blue dots kind of staring at you right crazy like. Whereas this guy, they took the time to kind of put that line on the top. It just makes him a lot more human looking. Like this almost looks like it could be one of those android Supermen that fly around the Fortress of Solitude or whatever. So, you know, in hindsight, by comparison, I think this guy is a little better as far as the head goes. And then as far as the cape goes too. So this guy, just like the Wave 1 Batman, it's kind of a very rigid ribbon-like material. You can see the hole that the packaging left in the cape, which is kind of annoying because I can't not see that when I look at these figures. Whereas this Superman has a much softer, flowing cape, no holes. So it just feels nicer in your hands. So not only does he have the better cape, he's got the better head sculpt. Yeah, so they're both neat, but I find it pains me to almost say this, but if you could only buy one of these figures for your collection, I would say go with the new 52 Superman. And then just one last Superman to bring in here is my Kenner vintage Superman, who I don't have a cape for. But you can see how he sizes up again, just a little too short. Color is a little bit different. His eyes, he also just has those kind of two blue dots. So you can see where McFarlane got the inspiration from, I guess, to do it on that figure. But yeah, there you go. So that is Superman. So next up we've got Robin. And as mentioned earlier, the card art, even though it's nice, kind of classic 80s looking artwork, you know, it looks like artwork that belongs to different characters that they just colored to try and match this figure. And it doesn't really look like the Robin that it's supposed to be. This looks much more like the original Robin, Dick Grayson, or even Jason Todd, the second Robin. But yeah, it just does not really look like Tim Drake, which is who this guy is supposed to be. As you can see on the back of the packaging there, it describes that this is the Tim Drake version of Robin. Anyway, as much as I like Robin, and as much as I like Tim Drake, this figure just kind of misses the mark for me. And I don't know, I think his proportions seem a little weird. Like, it makes sense that he's a teenager, so they made him smaller than, say, Batman. So I appreciate that they did that. But I think it adds to the issue I noted earlier, is that the head sculpt is already bad enough. It makes him look like he's got a syndrome here. And the fact that his body is sort of squat and wide, I think just kind of adds to that. If they just went ahead and given him normal adult proportions with this head, it wouldn't be so bad. But I think the two things combined just really add to make Robin look a little off. But anyway, the paint job is nice. Like, I like the outfit. He's got that nice soft cape, which seems to be what they're probably going to do for all their figures going forward. Anyway, here's my old vintage Robin from back in the day. He was also a little bit shorter than the other characters in the line, so it looks like they've kind of matched these guys up. They seem to be pretty much the same height. I do love this figure in his classic outfit and his classic colors, as corny as it was for an outfit, or for an outfit, not a uniform. Tim Drake definitely had the cooler of all the Robin outfits. But yeah, as far as the figure goes, I have to give it to the vintage one for the win here. I'm just not loving this one. So hopefully they take another shot at Robin in a future wave. Now, before we move on to the 3-pack, in the days since I shot this video with Chad, I went out and I picked up this Wonder Woman. So I've still got her in the packaging here. You can see the artwork there. That's some really nice, again, kind of very classic 80s artwork. The Wonder Woman looks great there. I wish that carried through on the figure. Like, the figure's not necessarily bad, but man, I wish it looked like that artwork as opposed to this. Anyway, let's open her up and we'll take a closer look at it. Alright, so here is Wonder Woman outside of the packaging. And this is like my very first impressions of her. I literally just opened her up 2 seconds ago. And this is the second pass they've taken at Wonder Woman. If you look at the back of the packaging again, at the different characters they've released so far. So you can see that there was this Wonder Woman with the red cape and kind of the darker colors in Wave 1. Or I guess she was actually Wave 2, I think. And now we've got this one here, which I think they're trying to mimic the vintage action figure a little closer. But even though I didn't see either of these in stores until just the other day when I got this one, I wasn't sure I was going to buy these Wonder Woman figures, even if I saw them, because I just didn't love the look of them. In the same way that I passed on Aquaman, just because it's the bearded version of Aquaman. I would rather get, this body with the clean-shaven head. I wouldn't mind a bearded Aquaman, but if I'm going to get bearded Aquaman, I'd want the later version of him where he has a hook for a hand and all that stuff. I don't really associate this body, that uniform, with the bearded Aquaman. So, I'm not going to buy every one of these figures, just because they're making them. I'm trying to be a little discretionary. And Wonder Woman, I wasn't sure I loved either of these figures. And I'm still not sure that I do. It's just, she's a character that I really wanted to have in my collection. You can't, not have a Wonder Woman in your DC collection. And the fact that they've done her twice already, maybe they aren't going to do another one for a little while. And it's not a terrible figure. It really isn't. She's got this cape, which I don't usually associate with Wonder Woman. It looks like it might be a little more difficult to put on and remove just because it's on there right under her hair. I am noticing she has no head articulation, which is kind of weird. So all the other figures' heads turn. Hers does not. Otherwise, she looks like she has the pretty standard articulation. So the outfit looks nice. I'm not sure about those dark blue cuffs. Again, it's based on the vintage figure, so I understand why they did it. But I don't know that she ever wore dark blue cuffs like that. I would think it would make more sense to make them yellow or maybe silver is what I'm thinking. But anyway, it's okay. Now here is my vintage Wonder Woman. And even though this figure is kind of goofy looking in its own way, and she's a little dirty, looks like she could use a little bit of a cleaning here. She's got some... She needs to shave her pits. She's got some cobwebs going there. Anyway, when I look at this figure, it still looks like Wonder Woman to me. This one looks like an imposter. I don't know. Just something with that face. It doesn't scream Wonder Woman. But you can see how closely these outfits are. I honestly don't know if this Wonder Woman came with a blue cape when it was new, because I got this secondhand. It probably did, I'm guessing. But, so yeah, they've done a good job of recreating this figure in this one here as far as the colors go and the design. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I just don't love it. But it's okay. So lastly, we have the figures from the 3-pack. So Peacemaker. So the sculpt looks good for him for what he is. He's got kind of a goofy outfit. So it matches his comic book look. Even the goofy helmet I'm okay with because it matches the comic book. My issue with this figure is the eyes. So if you get up close there, you can see those are just flesh-colored eyes. I think they should have filled in his eyes white or black, and then I would think this was a totally decent figure. As it stands now, it just something feels kind of incomplete and cheap about him. So, I don't know. So he's alright. I don't know if any of these figures have accessories. Yeah, now that I think about it, like Nightwing, he came with some little nightsticks, and Green Lantern, he came with a lantern. So I'm kind of thinking some of these figures would have been nice if they had some accessories. Like this guy here, I feel like he should have a gun. Wonder Woman, she probably should have came with her lasso. But anyway, so yeah, he's fine. Vigilante, I quite like. Again, I don't know anything about this character other than what I saw in the show. And I'm guessing that in the comic books, he isn't probably anything like he was portrayed in the Peacemaker show, because he was kind of a goofy wannabe in the show. And the comic books, from what I've seen, it looks like he was supposed to be kind of this, badass vigilante guy, hence the name. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's a goofball in the comic books too. But anyway, this is a cool looking figure. I wouldn't have necessarily thought Snake Eyes, but when Chad mentioned it, I was like, yeah, I definitely see some Snake Eyes there. And for that reason, he is very cool, because Snake Eyes is cool. So yeah, this guy's definitely my favorite of the 3-pack, and maybe even my favorite of this whole wave that we reviewed today. And then Judo Master, I don't know anything about him other than what I saw in the show, and he doesn't even look anything like he did in the show. So yeah, this whole look is completely foreign to me. Like even these guys who I knew nothing about, I probably knew them from DC promotional material. Like again, I grew up as a Marvel kid, so there was the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, which was like an encyclopedia for Marvel characters, which I was really familiar with. And DC published something similar called Who's Who, which I always rifled through even though I didn't own them. So I might have recognized these characters from like the Who's Who books in the 80s. This guy here, I don't think I've ever seen him before. I don't recognize him from Who's Who. Maybe he's had different looks over the years. Like this, when I looked and found pictures of him online, this look seems to predate him even being associated with DC. I think he was acquired by DC from a different company. So this is a pretty old school look. Maybe he changed his look to something more contemporary that I would have recognized. So I essentially know nothing about this character. But that doesn't diminish my appreciation for the figure. As I said earlier, when I was talking with Chad, I really love when they add kind of obscure characters to this line. That's what I loved about the Superpowers line when I was a kid, is it wasn't just a rehash of, the usual Justice League members. You had all these weirdos that you weren't familiar with. And as a kid, I just think that was great to get introduced to new characters. I don't know how many kids are out there collecting these figures. I'd like to think some. And this is probably a lot of their introduction to Judo Master. And who knows, maybe they will become lifelong Judo Master fans. Unlikely, but who knows? So that's pretty much it for this episode.
That's episode 49 of Toy Talk with Mike and Chad. So,
yeah, the big 50th episode next.
If you like this episode, you have any comments on the superpower figures, if you collect them, let us know what ones you like. Make sure you like, comment,
subscribe.
And subscribe.
And we'll see you next time in our 50th episode.
Keep collecting.
Ciao.